Dear Emily Apple, the Canary Investigations editor, thanks for joining us today. Thanks for accepting the interview.
Oh, well, thank you for having me.
Thank you. So this was your sixth trip to Bakur, to Turkey, since 2011. So you make a delegation with the radical journalists, including three of journalists from the Canary as well. So there was people from Kurdistan Solidarity Network, as well as defend and prisoners solidarity organizations as well. So what was your aim on this time visiting Turkey? Can you explain us, can you give us little more information about this last trip and the delegation as well?
Of course. So we went from a variety of different organisations. All of us were part of the Kurdistan Solidarity Network, and we wanted to learn from the struggle there, but also find ways to amplify what's happening in the region and to connect our various struggles and movements, especially around sort of prisoner solidarity and around sort of radical journalism, because there's such a large amount of really good radical journalism that's happening in the region as well.
Actually, many journalists are going to Turkey to do investigations, and also the latest developments according to the economic crisis in Turkey. Turkey has been on the headlines all over the Europe. But do you think you can be the voices of those facing constant repression from the Turkish state?
I think so. I think the problem with Turkey being in the headlines all the time is that the repressive measures of the Turkish state aren't being reported on as much. So people are talking about the economic crisis in the area, which is very real, but they're not talking about the other side of that and the severe repression that people, particularly in Bakur, are facing. And I don't think that we can be the voice for everyone, but um, I hope that we can do everything that we can do to amplify and give a platform to those voices that are often ignored in the mainstream media.
Do you get any feedback when you publish these kind of articles? As a Canary is the Canary is one of the famous news agencies in UK based. So when you do these investigations about Turkey and this repression and attacks to especially to Kurdish people and Kurdish politicians, what is the feedback of your articles?
Um, I mean, generally, people are really supportive of the articles and are really pleased that we can get those voices out. And I think it makes a difference in terms of reporting in the UK. Like there are lots of good outlets that are reporting on the Kurdish struggle, but because we cover quite a wide range of different stories in the Canary, so we have a slightly different audience. So it means that we can get some of these issues and the situation out to people who might not necessarily know what's happening in Bakur and what the Turkish state is doing.
You also visited the co-chair of the Democratic Society Congress, the DTK, too. You are able to observe political parties and their activities in EU too. How would you compare the democracy towards political parties of the states in this manner? What I'm trying to ask is, how would you stress the states' approach to the political parties? For example, can you compare the UK government approach to Labour Party and Turkish state's approach to the HDP and DTK?
So, I mean, there isn't a comparison in the sense that all the political organising in Bakur is being criminalised. The DTK have had their offices shut down. They've effectively been criminalised. People are facing charges. And the same with the HDP as the main Kurdish political party, there is so much criminalisation. Every meeting that we went to, people have either been to prison, or they're facing prison, or they're facing investigations. Um, and there is no democracy within the Turkish state, in terms of criminalisation and in terms of what parties are allowed to do. On the flip side, the HDP, for example, and the DTK are practicing a much more grassroots direct democracy and are far more democratic than the Labour Party has ever been. And through the system of co-chairs, through the system of participation, and through the pillars of democratic confederalisation, the kind of democracy that has been practiced by the Kurdish parties is a million times away and a million times better than the democracy that's practiced by the Labour Party in this country.
And while this is nothing, ever since my first trip to the region in 2011 as an election monitor, I have been struck by the fact that there is no safe position to take if you support the Kurdish struggle and oppose the ruling government. There are signs that things are getting worse. These are your words from one of your articles published on the Canary as well, about your observations to about Turkey since 2011. So could you please give us some more information about that, as you see the signs that things are getting worse? What is getting worse in Turkey?
So I think in terms, the repression's always been bad in the region, but there are signs that things are getting worse, or getting worse again, I should probably say. So, for example, with the Kobani trial, with the criminalisation of so many members of the HDP, so many elected politicians, and for example, as I was saying, with the DTK now being shut down officially, for example, when I was there in 2019, we were able to go to their offices. They haven't got offices now. And things like the repression of women has also got worse. Women are really seen as a sort of double threat to the Turkish state, both through being women and through being Kurdish and being very powerful politically. And we've seen that in things like the 30-year sentence given to Ayşe Gökhan, the former chair of the TJA, the Free Women's Movement. And so there's real signs that the Turkish state are really, really sort of cracking down on anyone who is opposing them in any way. And I think this is the thing, that it doesn't matter whether you're a journalist, whether you're a lawyer, whether you're a trade union member or a trade union organizer. The Turkish state will say that you are part of a terrorist organization. And it almost becomes, something that people smile about when they're saying it, because it's so ludicrous that these people are part of a terrorist organization, because they are part of civil society. They are doing organizing that we would all consider legitimate and legal, yet the Turkish state is labeling them as terrorists. And so there is no safe way of being part of that struggle there and not being criminalized. So if I was doing my job there, I would be criminalized for it. And I think that's something that people quite often don't realize about Turkey. They see Turkey as part of NATO. They see it as this sort of intermediate place between the Middle East and Europe that is quite safe. And that couldn't be further from the truth. And I think people really need to realize exactly what the Turkish state is doing.
You have mentioned the Turkey's criminalizing policies against the Kurds, actually, and any opposition in Turkey under the Erdogan's regime. And also, you have gave as an example that you are a journalist, and if you were a journalist in Turkey, you would be sentenced to prison. Um, so you can emphasize with that. What I would like to ask you in that case is, do you think keeping the PKK in the terrorist organizations list, as well as approaching to the HDP as labeling the HDP actually as a terrorist organization as well in Turkey, and also keeping Mr. Abdullah Öcalan, Kurdish leader Mr. Abdullah Öcalan, under isolation as well. Do you think all these are related with the Turkey's genocidal policies against Kurds?
Yeah, absolutely. It's completely related to Turkey's policies to completely suppress and eliminate Kurdish resistance, and it has nothing to do with terrorism. The PKK should be delisted. There's several campaigns going on to delist the PKK, and there is no way that they should still remain as a terrorist organization and be listed as a terrorist organization. And the same with the isolation of Abdullah Öcalan. That has to be ended. The conditions that he's being held in are appalling. He has been in isolation for such a long time. And Öcalan is such a fundamental part of the peace process, because the fundamental thing to remember when we're having these conversations about terrorism is all these organizations, all these people, Öcalan wants peace. Öcalan is part of the peace process. If we're going to get to the point of peace, we need to stop talking about these organizations as terrorist organizations. And that goes for the UK state listing the PKK as a terrorist organization. And it goes for the Turkish state trying to paint the HDP as a terrorist organization. And it means that we really do need to really step up and end the isolation on Öcalan and make sure that he is able to be involved in that peace process, so that we can move beyond this position of conflict and we can actually look at the ideas that the Kurdish Freedom Movement is trying to perpetuate. So these ideas of radical democracy and how we can liberate people, and we can put women, we can put the planet and ecology at the center of our organizing and our political movements. None of these are terrorist things. You know, these are about peaceful solutions and a peaceful approach to living.
Is there anything else that you would like to add on about the latest delegation visit to Turkey that I didn't ask? Any details that you think it's important to speak out about it?
I think one of the main things was in terms of prisoner solidarity and in terms of the sick prisoners in Turkey. So there's hundreds of prisoners who should be released from prison who are ill, and the Turkish state is providing medical examinations that aren't impartial and that are aimed at keeping people in prison. And while we were there, 2 people who'd been in prison who had cancer died very sadly. And this can't be allowed to continue. And I think we all need to raise our voices to ensure that those sick and ill prisoners are released, and that the Turkish state knows that pressure is coming from outside of the region to release these prisoners.
Dear Emily Apple, the Canary Investigations editor, thanks for joining us. Thank you for your valuable comments today.
Oh, thank you for having me again.
Thank you.